I hereby declare you official temporary deputies of the Mayberry Police Force. At ease. That means you can put your hands down.
I guess it isn't such a small world after all.
That's right. We're always saying what a small world it is, when actually it really isn't a small world.
In 1960, The Andy Griffith Show officially premiered and immediately achieved explosive success. The show took audiences to the town of Mayberry, a place that seemed peaceful, yet was filled with fascinating stories. Here, Sheriff Andy Taylor not only raised his young son Opie as a single father, but also skillfully kept order among the eccentric townsfolk who constantly created humorous situations. With its blend of family warmth, rustic humour, and community values, the show quickly became an icon of American television. However, few people know that Barney Fife was originally just a supporting character, but, thanks to Don Knotts' talent, became the soul of the show, or that Aunt Bee and Andy Griffith were so tense in real life that they could hardly stand each other. So what made such a gentle series endure as an American cultural legend? Let's uncover the 20 most shocking secrets of the Andy Griffith Show right now. 20. Howard McNear suffered a stroke while the show was filming. Howard McNear, familiar to audiences as Floyd the Barber on The Andy Griffith Show, went through a cruel health crisis right at the peak of his career. In 1963, during the filming of the third season, McNear suddenly suffered a stroke, leaving the left side of his body paralysed. This condition seemed certain to end his acting career, as sitcom characters usually needed to move around and be physically expressive. However, instead of removing Floyd from Mayberry, Andy Griffith and the production team did everything possible to keep McNear on the show. They redesigned scenes, arranging chairs or supports so he could sit or stand steadily. Most of the barbershop scenes were staged so that he only needed to use his right hand, while his left hand remained nearly motionless. When standing scenes were required, say, McNear was often placed behind a chair or near a table for support, creating the most natural effect possible. Thanks to these careful adjustments, Floyd the Barber continued to appear for many more seasons. Though physically limited, McNear's wit and charm never diminished. He still delivered his trademark witty, humorous lines, making it hard for audiences to realise he was battling illness behind the scenes. Were you impressed by this character on the show? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 19. Opie's mother was one of television's greatest mysteries. Throughout the Andy Griffith Show, Opie's mother remained one of the most mysterious absent characters on television. Viewers only learned that she had passed away when Opie was just a speck of a boy, according to Andy in the Backdoor pilot episode aired in The Danny Thomas Show. Her name was never mentioned, no photos were shown, no memories or backstory about her family were ever given. Apart from her birth and death, her existence was left entirely blank.
Francis Bavier, who turned down the offer to appear. This may have been due to health reasons or that Bavier...
They wanted audiences to concentrate on the relationships between Andy, Opie, and Aunt Bee, the people who created the daily life of Mayberry. Keeping the mother figure absent also highlighted the void Opie never consciously felt, while emphasizing Andy's dual role as both father and mother. 18. There was actually a second Andy Griffith Show. After ending the Andy Griffith Show at its peak in 1968, Andy Griffith decided to gamble with his career. When the series was the #1 show in America, Griffith walked away, fearing he would forever be trapped in the image of the kindly Southern sheriff. This bold decision paved the way for his return 2 years later with Headmaster, a very different project where Griffith played the head of an elite prep school in California. But audiences didn't accept it, and after only 14 episodes, Headmaster was cancelled. CBS didn't give up. They quickly launched another project, the new Andy Griffith Show in 1971. This time, Griffith played Andy Sawyer, a man returning to his hometown of Greenwood, North Carolina, to temporarily serve as mayor. There was no Mayberry and no sheriff, but Greenwood carried a very familiar feel. A small town, down-to-earth characters and simple situations. Some familiar faces also returned: George Lindsay, Paul Hartman, and even Don Knotts in a guest role strikingly similar to Barney Fife. However, this rebirth failed. Despite its January 1971 debut, attracting the curiosity of millions, the show quickly lost viewers. The new Andy Griffith Show lasted only 10 episodes before CBS pulled the plug. The attempt to reinvent Griffith's image collapsed, leaving the question: did audiences really want to see him outside of Andy Taylor? After that stumble, Griffith stayed quiet for a few years, taking guest roles in Hawaii Five-0 and The Mod Squad. But Hollywood never forgets a true star. In 1986, he returned with Matlock, playing lawyer Ben Matlock, and immediately re-established his legendary status in American television. This proved that even if a new Andy Griffith Show died young, the real Andy Griffith never left the hearts of the public. Did you watch these later projects, and how did you feel about them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 17. Character names came from places near Mount Airy. You may not realise that many character names seem to have roots in the small towns surrounding Mount Airy, Andy Griffith's own hometown. Fans noticed strange coincidences. Andy Taylor may have been inspired by the town of Taylorsville, Floyd Lawson recalls Lawsonville. Ellie Walker mirrors Walkertown, and Helen Crump closely resembles the village name Crumpler. All of these places are within just a few dozen miles of Mount Airy, making it hard to believe it was mere coincidence. What's even more interesting is that for many years, Griffith often denied that Mayberry was a direct copy of Mount Airy. He emphasised that the show's setting was built as a typical southern town, not an exact replica of his hometown. Yet details like the characters' names tied to real locations still convinced audiences that the producers cleverly borrowed from reality to create familiarity and authenticity for the setting. 16. Andy Griffith didn't like the idea at first. Few people know that Andy Griffith was not enthusiastic about the Andy Griffith Show from the beginning. When veteran producer Sheldon Leonard approached him in New York with the script for a series about a small-town sheriff, Griffith's reaction was doubtful. A small town, a sheriff keeping order, and a few everyday situations. It all sounded too simple, even bland compared to an era when Hollywood favoured gun-slinging westerns or loud family sitcoms. Griffith admitted he didn't much like the idea. But one factor changed everything: Sheldon Leonard himself. Griffith respected Leonard's style and professional reputation so much that he didn't turn him down outright but allowed Leonard to explain further. In later conversations, Griffith still wasn't completely convinced, but his personal trust in Leonard led him to agree to give it a try. Later, Griffith was even granted significant ownership of the series, a rare privilege at the time, which made him feel like more than just an actor, but someone with a voice in shaping the entire show. Griffith's initial reluctance also came from creative concerns. He didn't want the show to become a silly comedy, repeating exaggerated slapstick. He insisted that the script remain authentic, with humour arising naturally from the characters and everyday situations, not cheap gags. He also cut many early details that made the sheriff's role overloaded. Acting as judge, magazine manager, even mayor, Andy Taylor had to be relatable and layered, and this made him connect deeply with millions of American viewers for years. Ironically, the series that Griffith once disliked became the greatest hallmark of his career, one of the most beloved and highest-rated sitcoms in television history. The decision to follow Leonard, even with doubts, turned Griffith into the symbol of the everyday American on the small screen, a role he portrayed with seriousness, charm, and nuance so strong that no one has ever truly replaced him. 15. Don Knotts left the show after 5 seasons. Don Knotts, who was inseparably linked with the character Barney Fife in the Andy Griffith Show, left the series after 5 seasons, leaving a void that was difficult to fill. This decision stemmed from Knott's original contract. He had only signed on for 5 years and firmly believed that Andy Griffith would also end the show after that period. As the contract neared its end, Knott's began looking for new directions, signing a deal with Universal to pursue film projects and his own programs. Ironically, just as Knott's had committed to Universal, Andy Griffith changed his mind and decided to continue the series for several more seasons. At that point, although deeply regretful, Knott's could not undo his decision. He once admitted in an interview, "I thought Andy was going to quit after 5 seasons. When the 5th season was almost over, I started looking for other work. It was tough leaving the show because I loved it." That was the bitter truth. Faced with a choice between new opportunities and an old love, he had to choose his career path. After Barney Fife left the screen, the character no longer appeared regularly, only returning in a few guest episodes. To fill the gap, the producers introduced Warren Ferguson, played by Jack Burns, a new deputy sheriff, sometimes described as a cousin of Floyd the Barber. However, Warren never captured the charm or chemistry that Barney once brought. After only 11 episodes, the character disappeared, leaving behind the conclusion that the Andy Griffith Show had lost an essential part of its original comic heart. Did you love Don Knotts and feel regret when he left? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 14. Filmed with a single camera and no live studio audience. The Andy Griffith Show took a different path compared to many sitcoms of its time. Instead of being filmed with 3 cameras in front of a live audience, the show was produced using a single camera, with no real laughter echoing from the studio. This was Andy Griffith's wish, as he believed that laughter and direct reactions could ruin the natural flow, making actors perform for the audience rather than live as their characters. However, in the 1960s, television networks considered audience laughter a safety net, guiding home viewers on when to laugh. Griffith strongly disliked laugh tracks, the artificial laughter added in post-production, but was forced to compromise. At first, he tried screening an episode in front of a live audience to capture their genuine laughter and then edit it into the broadcast. This created a more natural effect, but the costs were too high and unsustainable. In the end, the team had to use laugh tracks, though Griffith insisted on keeping them to a minimum. Only clearly comedic moments were accompanied by laughter, while emotional or nuanced scenes were left untouched. 13. The fishing spot was actually in the middle of LA. Fans of the show dreamed of Mayberry as a quiet countryside haven, but in reality, those secluded fishing scenes in the opening sequence of the Andy Griffith Show were filmed in the heart of Los Angeles. Specifically, the lake used as Myers Lake in the series was actually the man-made Upper Franklin Reservoir in Franklin Canyon Park, located on the border between Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, California. Franklin Canyon Park spans about 605 acres, nestled within the city park system, with a lake, trails, and lush greenery, a green lung amid the city. It was chosen as the outdoor filming location for its natural beauty and stark contrast to urban surroundings. The producers used this lake for scenes of Andy and Opie walking along the water's edge, skipping stones, and sharing serene moments in nature, scenes that viewers believed to be in the countryside. 12. The theme song actually had lyrics. Audiences across America are familiar with the cheerful whistling that opens the Andy Griffith Show, but in fact, the theme song once had lyrics. The melody was composed by Earl Hagen and Herbert Spencer, with Hagen himself performing the whistling. In 1961, actor Everett Sloane, who had appeared in one episode, thought the tune was far too catchy to exist only as an instrumental. He wrote lyrics for it, and the song was given the new title, The Fishin' Hole. What's remarkable is that this lyrical version never appeared on television. Instead, Andy Griffith recorded it for the show's official album, singing it in a simple, down-to-earth style that perfectly matched the country father persona he portrayed on the show. 11. Aunt Bee and Andy Griffith were not close in real life. On The Andy Griffith Show, the character Aunt Bee, played by Frances Bavier, was always portrayed as gentle, caring, and the warm heart of Sheriff Andy Taylor's household. Yet behind the camera, the relationship between Bavier and Andy Griffith was far from the sweetness that fans imagined. Trained as a stage actress, Bavier often confessed that she felt the role of Aunt Bee had smothered her artistic potential, reducing her to the image of a kindly, simple aunt, while she longed to be recognised for more complex roles. The constant public association with Aunt Bee even led her to seek therapy to escape the shadow of the character. The tension was visible on set. Bavier often kept her distance from colleagues, avoiding jokes and offset activities with Griffith and Don Knotts. Some witnesses recalled Griffith occasionally losing patience with her, to the point that Don Knotts had to remind him, "Be nice to Frances, she's a good actress." To her peers, Bavier came across as sensitive, perfectionist, and not easy to get along with. This gradually made her a solitary figure amid the otherwise cheerful spirit of the production. After the series and its spin-off Mayberry RFD ended, Frances Bavier left Hollywood and lived quietly in Siler City, North Carolina. She cut off nearly all contact with her former castmates, choosing a secluded life away from public scrutiny. Yet in her later years, Bavier called Andy Griffith to express regret. She admitted she had been too difficult during production and apologised for the tensions of the past. Griffith later recounted the story as a moment of late reconciliation. Bittersweet, but deeply human. 10. The house address changed constantly. One of the most amusing and debated details of The Andy Griffith Show is the ever-changing address of Sheriff Andy Taylor's home. Throughout the 8 seasons, fans grew familiar with the house where Andy, Opie, and Aunt Bee lived together, but careful listeners noticed the address kept shifting in dialogue. In one episode, it was 332 Maple Road. In another, it became 24 Elm Street, and at one point, Andy himself claimed to live at 14 Maple Road. This inconsistency has fueled decades of fan debate. What was Taylor's real address? This inconsistency wasn't considered a serious flaw, but reflected the production style of 1960s television. Back then, writers weren't bound by a strict series Bible, as in modern TV. If a script needed an address for a scene, the writer often just picked a number or street name that sounded right, without worrying about consistency across episodes. As a result, Andy's home shifted from Maple to Elm and back to Maple with a different number, becoming a little legend among longtime fans. 9. Romance was a challenge. Andy Taylor was paired with Ellie Walker right from the first season. Ellie was a pharmacist in Mayberry, intelligent, independent in appearance, quite different from the traditional female archetypes of the time. But the relationship between Andy and Ellie lacked clear chemistry. Eleanor later shared that she felt out of place on set. Many of the humorous lines originally written for Ellie were reassigned to Barney Fife, leading her to feel that her abilities were not being fully utilised. She remembered feeling like a bird out of a nest, not mature enough to play Andy's love interest. Eventually, Eleanor asked to end her contract after 1 season. She said she didn't feel she was developing the role properly and wanted to step back to focus on her mental health. Years later, when meeting Andy Griffith again at an event, Eleanor Donahue apologised for leaving the show so suddenly, worried that her departure might have disappointed him. Andy responded very politely, "No, don't worry. We just didn't know what to write for you." After Ellie stepped away from Andy's romantic storyline, the writers in the following season introduced Helen Crump as a confidant and companion for Andy Taylor. Helen appeared in season 3 and later became a longer-term, more stable love interest. They had courtship scenes, dates, occasional small arguments, and eventually married in the spin-off Mayberry RFD. Which character impressed you more? Share your thoughts below in the comments. 8. All sets were in California. Although audiences always felt that Mayberry was a peaceful small town in North Carolina, The entire setting of the Andy Griffith Show was actually constructed entirely in California. The interior shots, from the Taylor family home to the sheriff's office, were all filmed at Desilu Studios in Hollywood. Meanwhile, the iconic outdoor Mayberry streets were created on the 40 acres backlot in Culver City, which had also served countless other classic productions. 7. Reunion in Return to Mayberry. In 1986, American audiences were once again brought back to Mayberry through the TV movie Return to Mayberry. This was not just a reunion, but also a tribute to the legacy of the Andy Griffith Show. Nearly 2 decades later, Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Ron Howard, and most of the original cast returned in a story that was both fresh and filled with nostalgia. Instead of using the classic backlot 40 acres, which had been torn down, the crew recreated Mayberry in Los Olivos, California, once again delivering the familiar atmosphere audiences loved. In the film, Andy Taylor had left Mayberry years earlier to work in Cleveland. He returned when Opie, now grown, was about to welcome his first child. But the homecoming quickly turned into an unexpected journey as Andy considered running for sheriff. This put him in a delicate situation. Barney Fife, his closest friend, was serving as acting sheriff and wanted to keep the job. Tension arose, but ultimately, friendship and loyalty triumphed over ambition. Alongside the main storyline, Return to Mayberry also sprinkled in nostalgic touches, the return of Thelma Lou, silly small-town antics, and even a fictional Mayberry Lake monster created by townsfolk to attract tourists. All these elements blended into a story both humorous and heartwarming, true to the spirit of the original series. Upon airing, Return to Mayberry became the highest-rated television movie of 1986. Have you seen this movie, and how did you feel about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. 6. Andy really loved playing pranks. Behind the scenes, Andy Griffith was famous as the prank king of the entire set. Don Knotts, forever linked with the role of Barney Fife, was his most frequent victim. Griffith had a habit of sneaking up and suddenly dropping a metal film canister on the floor, creating a loud crash that startled Knotts awake. Not stopping there, Griffith also liked to call Knotts by his real name, Jess, which his friend disliked, a mischievous but affectionate tease. George Goober Lindsay also had an unforgettable experience. After a nap, he woke up in his dressing room only to be horrified to find duck entrails hanging everywhere, all the handiwork of Griffith's prank. Beyond the laughter of audiences on screen, the cast themselves shared real laughter, thanks to the unpredictable playfulness of their leading man. What do you think of this funny fact? Share your thoughts with me. 5. George Lindsay almost played Gomer. The role of Gomer Pyle almost went to George Lindsay. With his extensive stage experience, Lindsay walked into the audition with many advantages. But then Jim Nabors, virtually unknown at the time, unexpectedly won over Andy Griffith with his innocent, charmingly naive performance. After the audition, it was Griffith himself who insisted on Nabors, a decision that changed the course of the show. Although Lindsay missed out on the role, he didn't leave Mayberry empty-handed. The producers created an entirely new character for him, Goober Pyle, Gomer's somewhat clumsy but lovable cousin. In the end, not becoming Gomer allowed Lindsay to establish his own unique role, leaving a lasting impression on audiences. 4. Despite its success, the Andy Griffith Show never won awards. Throughout its 8 years on the air, the Andy Griffith Show was a rare phenomenon in American television. The series never fell below 7th place in the Nielsen ratings, and even when it ended its run in 1968 at the very peak of its success, it still held the #1 spot nationwide. Although audiences embraced it passionately and its characters became pop culture icons, Andy Griffith himself never won an Emmy for his role as Andy Taylor. He wasn't even nominated. In contrast, Don Knotts, with his charming performance as Barney Fife, won 5 Emmy statues, while Francis Bavier received one in 1967. Barney Fife almost didn't exist. At first, The character Barney Fife was not part of the original plan for The Andy Griffith Show. In the pilot episode, Andy Taylor appeared alone, without any deputy sheriff by his side. It was Don Knotts himself who, after watching the pilot, called Andy Griffith and asked, "How can a sheriff not have a deputy?" That idea struck Griffith and the production team, and thus Barney Fife was created as a supporting character. Nervous, bumbling, but incredibly funny, based on the nervous man persona Knotts had perfected in earlier comedy shows. No one expected that this temporary character would become the second heartbeat of the entire series. The perfect dynamic between Griffith's calmness and Knotts' jittery energy had audiences roaring with laughter, and the producers quickly revised their plans, turning Barney from a short-term role into a permanent character. Don Knotts' talent not only won over viewers, but also convinced his colleagues that Barney was the element that truly defined the unique atmosphere of Mayberry. The rest is history. 2. From black and white to colour. When The Andy Griffith Show premiered in 1960, American television was still dominated by black and white programs. The first 5 seasons of the show, totaling 159 episodes, were produced in black and white, both to save costs and to suit the broadcasting infrastructure of the time. However, by the mid-1960s, colour technology was no longer considered a luxury. Major networks began requiring top shows to make the transition, viewing it as an essential step to retain audiences and showcase modernity on the small screen. As a result, starting with Season 6 in 1965, The Andy Griffith Show entered an entirely new era. Every episode was shot in colour. The final 3 seasons added 90 more episodes, bringing the series' total to 241. Andy Griffith was supposed to be the comic character. Originally, Andy Griffith was expected to bring to the character of Andy Taylor a tone similar to his role as Will Stockdale in No Time for Sergeants. Slow-witted, country-bred, and played for laughs. In fact, in the earliest episodes, Andy Taylor did have a bit of that naive quality, speaking awkwardly and reflecting the influence of Griffith's earlier character. But as other eccentric personalities like Barney Fife, Gomer Pyle, and Otis Campbell increasingly filled Mayberry with chaos, Andy Taylor could no longer remain the central comic figure. He had to become the anchor that audiences could trust and rely on. Andy Griffith soon realised this shift himself. He once exclaimed, "Good Lord, I just realised I'm the straight man. I'm the one setting up all the oddballs around me." From being a funny guy, Andy Taylor gradually evolved into a calm, intelligent character who resolved problems with wit and reason. The Andy Griffith Show was more than just a television series. It was a treasure chest of fascinating details that have captivated audiences for over half a century. The surprising facts about Andy's tense relationship with Frances Bavier, or how the theme song was whistled by Earl Hagen himself, are all pieces of the history that made the town of Mayberry so unforgettable. And what about you? Which of these facts impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for reading to the end, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more behind-the-scenes stories from Hollywood.